On November 9th of 2025, we have the most fear-mongered transit in all history of astrology happening for its third and final time of the year. Mercury stations retrograde in the sign of Sagittarius. And in today's video, I want to break some of the biggest stigmas around this transit and help you understand how this is actually one of the most important and positively impactful transits you can note. Hello and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Isabel, your spiritual rebel friend, and today we're talking about Mercury retrograde. Mercury stations retrograde on November 9th of 2025, where it will remain until roughly the 29th of November. And Mercury is going to station retrograde in Sagittarius, re-enter the sign of Scorpio, and station direct back in the sign of Scorpio. So I wanted to take an opportunity today to talk about some of the biggest narrative misconceptions that I hear in regards to this transit and help you understand what this is really about in a short and simple format, because there is such a mass amount of information, blogs, articles, YouTube videos, TikToks saying prepare for the worst with Mercury retrograde. And I want to take a quick minute, as it should be, to clarify and redefine what Mercury retrograde is all about, so you don't spend the next 2 weeks just waiting in fear for inevitable negative circumstances to come your way, because that's not what Mercury retrograde is about anyway. And before we get into that, before we dive in, if you want more help understanding the transits and how they are actually affecting you and really acting as beacons, highlighting innate parts of your personality that you have in your birth chart, then I invite you to book a reading down below, where in 30 minutes or 1 hour, we can dive deep into your soul's unique energetic imprint and how you are truly and potentially unconsciously being impacted by the stars, whether that's in transit or in your natal chart. In the end, astrology is a tool for self-development, self-growth, and living a life that you love. So if you want to use astrology in practical application, I invite you to book a reading down in the description box below. And join my free weekly newsletter if you want more practical guidance to the stars. That's also down below. But first off, I want to address what is Mercury retrograde in astrological terms. Mercury retrograde means that Mercury, the planet that represents the mind, thoughts, expression, and communication, appears from our view on Earth to be moving in backwards motion. Now remember, Mercury, the planet in our solar system, doesn't actually move backwards. And so what this represents is that from our human-based perception of reality, it may seem to be that communication is moving backwards, mind is moving backwards, thoughts, words are moving backwards. But are they really? No, because Mercury's never actually moving backwards, it's only moving forwards. And so this spiritual reminder of a retrograde is a time of slowing down. Whenever we have a retrograde in astrology, it's a moment to take a pause, to slow down our words, to slow down our thoughts, and revisit the past. Because any retrograde means that we are going back over the past, we are invited to revisit past people, places, conversations, in order to see if there's any sort of wisdom or insight to still be gained here. So the stigma or stereotype goes that Mercury retrograde brings miscommunication, and ex-lovers are coming back, and maybe even chaos or disruptions or losing things of any kind. We're supposed to double check our emails, triple check contracts, and slow down with our words. And these aren't necessarily fully inaccurate, because these are things that can come up with Mercury retrograde. Delays can happen, but that's not the nature of what the transit's about. The way I would phrase it simply is, if you're experiencing delays or miscommunication, it's because there's a piece of wisdom, advice, or guidance that the universe is trying to get you to understand through the revisiting or slowing down of these events. Mercury retrograde reminds us that we need introspection, we need reflection, and whatever sign Mercury retrograde is in, it tells us exactly what that story is about. So Mercury in November is retrograde in Sagittarius and Scorpio. Now, we've already had Mercury transit direct over this ground because it's going to retrograde back where it's already been. And so with Mercury stationing retrograde in Sagittarius first, we are invited to reflect on our horizons. What that specifically means is Mercury direct in Sagittarius is our mode of thinking where we're thinking about what is my vision for my life, or what is my vision for a certain area of life? What are my ideologies that structure my life? So it's our vision for our future as well as our personal beliefs and ideologies. And when Mercury goes retrograde here, we are being invited not necessarily to have mishaps here or to have chaos or ex-lovers from Sagittarius places, though that can happen. It's about what are you being invited to reflect upon in regards to these areas of life specifically. What are your ideals and are they serving you? What are the beliefs you are consciously or unconsciously holding? How are they structuring how you move through your life? And do they need to be reassessed? Also, the idea I love more metaphorically, but I feel explains Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius best is what is the unconscious horizon you're choosing? In many ways, Mercury in Sagittarius reminds us that we are all heading in a direction, whether we know it or not, whether we're consciously realizing it or not. We're always moving forward. Time doesn't stop. And so what direction are we choosing to go toward? And is it the peak, the horizon that we want to? Mercury retrograde may slow down our direction to help us ask ourselves, what direction am I heading? Am I choosing my horizon consciously? And so we're being asked to question, where are we heading in life? And with that, take it a step further and say, what direction do I want to head? And if I don't know the answer to that at first, what are my personal values? And how can I dictate and lead my life from those values? And then when Mercury stations retrograde in Scorpio, this invites us to reflect upon how we seek depth and meaning. Mercury in Scorpio may bring up issues related to chaos and volatility. Yes, because that is Mercury in Scorpio. Scorpio is the sign of chaos, but it's for the sake of helping us understand, what does depth really mean? What does intimacy really mean? What does obsession mean to us, and how does that play out positively in our lives? Mercury retrograde in Scorpio invites us to revisit old conversations to help create better depth with others and with ourselves, to go deeper into our shadows. So in the end, as a key consensus, Mercury retrograde is not about things from the past having to be slowed down or you're experiencing these negative events. Though they can happen, it's for a positive purpose. Mercury retrograde reminds us that sometimes we are on the go mentally and we need to take a moment to reflect, be mindful, meditate, introspect, reflect, and revisit the old. There's oftentimes many pieces of wisdom we miss by being too fast in our journey. And so Mercury retrograde invites us to slow down and ask ourselves, what past events, people, and places may I want to revisit to better assess my direction and create more depth with life? Mercury retrograde also in Scorpio and Sagittarius coincides with the fall signs, I would call them, because Libra season kicks off autumn equinox for us in the Northern Hemisphere, and we enter winter with Capricorn season. So Libra, Scorpio, and Sagittarius represent us falling into a slower phase of life and enabling that by creating greater depth with life, depth with our personal beliefs, and depth with others and ourselves. Scorpio and Sagittarius have a lot to do with depth and meaning. So this retrograde is a beautiful opportunity that we so need and crave to better create depth and meaning in our lives rather than filling it with more stuff, more people, more places. We're always on the go. We're a dopamine addicted society. And Mercury retrograde reminds us that we really do crave depth and meaning more than anything else. And now is the time to actively embrace it in the month of November with this Mercury retrograde. So a little bit tangenty, I know today, but I'd love to hear down in the comments below if you preferred this more Mercury and Aries style video talking about Mercury retrograde. Did this give you insight and new perspective on what Mercury retrograde is all about? Are you tired of hearing the stigmas that chaos is coming and that you should just throw your phone out the window at this point because everything's going to be miscommunication? I would love to hear down in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel and stay tuned for more videos breaking down the stars and more. Thank you guys so much for watching. Once again, my name's Isabel, from my heart to yours. Namaste.